This is The Toss-Up, where an expert-line panel dissects the hottest stories within the world of sports, from some of the nation's strongest college programs right here in Bloomington to the games and moments that capture the world's attention. It's all right here on The Toss-Up. Indiana football has finally kicked off their 2019 campaign with a season-opening win against Ball State in none other than Lucas Oil Stadium, the legendary home of Peyton Manning, and, to all you grieving Colts fans out there, newly retired quarterback Andrew Luck. The Hoosiers opened their season with their own new quarterback, as well as with a new offensive and defensive coordinator. The team has shown steady signs of improvement, but then again, so is the rest of the Big Ten Conference. Will Indiana be condemned to another 5-7 season, or could this year be that Tom Allen's Hoosiers finally break through? We'll talk about all that and more right here on the season debut of The Toss-Up. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm joined here by a panel of football experts. We have Jack Grossman from the IDS, Griffin Gonzalez from Hoosier Network, and Stephen Walker from our very own IUS TV Sports. So, guys, we're just going to start off strong with the Hoosiers win over Ball State. Sorry about that. Hoosiers win over Ball State. Michael Penix had a great game. Logan Justice, another great game from him. What were some positives right off the bat, Jack?
I think Penix, for the most part, was a positive. Yes, he had the 2 picks, but one of them wasn't fully his fault. There was a mistimed route. Guy slipped. That'll happen sometimes, but I think if you're grading him out, I'd give him probably a B+. He made some really nice throws. The touchdown to Nick Westbrook, obviously the biggest example, was such a beautifully thrown ball. Really nice. So it was a really good performance from Penix to see him get that debut under his belt and look solid in it.
The big takeaway from that Ball State needs to be is the first thing you look at your offense. Yeah, you left a lot of points on the board. That's something that can be improved upon week to week. But just how much smarter their play calling was every single drive. You could tell it was not predictable. You're not running on a 3rd and short every play, which was beautiful. You're actually taking chances downfield. And when you have the receiving core that this Indiana unit has, you have to take chances downfield. It's exactly what Kalen DeBoer said the day he was interviewed as to be offensive coordinator, and this is exactly what he implemented in week 1 against Ball State.
And that's why Michael Penix is the starting quarterback, because he can throw the ball downfield.
Exactly correct, yes.
Stephen, what were some positives you saw?
Yeah, Michael Penix was amazing. Like they're saying, 326 yards is the most passing yards by a freshman in their first start since Antoine Randall. So that's some great company right there.
I'll take it, yeah.
Yeah, and the downfield ability is what really puts him on another level than Peyton Ramsey. Both of those quarterbacks are mobile, but Penix has the downfield threat. Ramsey didn't really have that same threat throwing the ball downfield. Penix brings something else to the table. And then besides that, like you mentioned, Logan Justice had a career day with 4 field goals. Every single one just was true the whole way. So, special teams was great, and Michael Penix looking like he's bounced back really well from his ACL injury.
Yeah, definitely some positives, but also a couple of downsides to look at. And Griffin, as you mentioned, they left a lot of points up on the board. Stephen, I'll kick it back to you, though, to start this off. A lot of missed tackles, a lot of dropped passes. Are these things that Hoosier fans need to be concerned about?
I wouldn't say so. I think it's just some early jitters in the season. It was their first game. You're going to have some mistakes, especially playing in Lucas Oil Stadium with the big fan base there. But Allen said in the press conference that with the tackles, those are easy fixes, and if guys don't want to fix it, they're just not going to play. So I think that's motivation enough to fix the tackling. And for the drop passes, even Nick Westbrook himself said that he shouldn't have dropped that pass. He said he might have been just a little bit too wide open, just that he needs to get back to the jugs machine and get to work. So I think they're going to be just fine. Fans shouldn't really worry. They're going to have a big game against Eastern Illinois. Should be a good little game to get themselves going for Ohio State.
We just all need to take a little bit of a breath. Okay, it's game 1. Now let's keep in mind, college football has transformed the way off-season workouts work. So you really aren't ever getting full contact, full bringing a guy down to the ground until that week 1 ball game. So Ball State was almost like another round of practice for this Hoosier squad, which you hate saying that about Ball State. But
Let
at the
the
same
coach speak there,
time,
Griffin.
at the same time, you're really still getting a feel of how to bring guys down to the ground, technique, all that stuff. Yes, the missed tackles were terrible. 25 missed tackles, and Ball State's offense created 181 yards off those 25 missed tackles. That's not good. But what is good is it's week 1. If that's going on in week 9, there's an issue. You have a lot of time to fix it. Indiana will get it fixed by this week, ready for Eastern Illinois.
I'm not hugely worried about the drop passes or the missed tackles. What I am worried about, though, is the running game. I mean, you're looking at Indiana's arguably their best position group on the team is the running backs. I mean, Stevie Scott was phenomenal last year. He's on the Maxwell and the Doak Walker Award watch list, Griffin, and they bring in Samson James, who's a top 10 running back, Ronnie Walker, another highly rated recruit, and Cole Guess is fine also. You have those 4 guys, and they averaged less than 3 yards per carry against a Ball State team that was the 10th worst rushing defense in the FBS last year. Now, I don't really put that on the running backs specifically. The offensive line wasn't getting any push, and they weren't opening holes up for the running backs. Yes, I know they were loading the box the entire day, but at the end of the day, you're a Big Ten school. They're a MAC school with a terrible rushing defense. You got to be able to establish the run better than that. And if they can't do that again against Eastern Illinois, a team that struggled in the FCS to defend the run, then I think that's a real warning sign moving forward, because you can't put all your hopes and dreams on Mike Penix's arm to say, okay, you're going to go get us to a bowl game in a single-dimensional offense. You got to be able to run the ball, and Indiana was worrisome with that in the Ball State game.
Yeah, it did seem to be an issue as Stevie Scott was held to under 50 rushing yards himself, but he did have 2 touchdowns, and Jack, you were just talking about it. Griffin, do you think that fans should be worried about Stevie Scott at all?
No, I don't think so. I mean, yes, you should be able to run against a MAC defense that is stacking the box. However, at that point, you're putting 7 guys, 8 guys in the box. It's a numbers game. You have 5 guys trying to block 7 or 8. It just becomes tough to do. Yeah, it's going to be tough to gain a 15-yard run down the middle when Stevie Scott is a running back who needs to power through the middle. So, yeah, it's kind of hard to get over 75, 100 yards when you are in that scenario. However, moving forward, if they're not stacking the box against Eastern Illinois and Stevie Scott still only has 75 yards, there's an issue. Because that shows there's an issue not with the running back per se, there's an issue with your offensive line. Yes, this offensive line is young. However, that doesn't make an excuse for why you can't accomplish the blocking schemes that you need to for your star running back. I think if Stevie Scott can come in, get carries, and get down the field like he did last year with, keep in mind, also inexperienced offensive line, takes time. But once these guys get going, you should definitely see that number go up.
And that really is the whole key, is the offensive line. I think Stevie Scott's fine. The fact that he was able to get to almost 50 yards on 19 carries with how often he was getting hit at the line of scrimmage and behind the line of scrimmage is honestly kind of impressive. But that's not going to get the job done against the Michigans, Ohio States of the world. They play Ohio State in 2 weeks. They got to figure it out soon, because there's no way they compete with the Buckeyes if the O-line doesn't play better than what they did last Saturday.
Yeah, right. And like we're saying, Stevie Scott's not the kind of running back that's going to run to the outside. He needs to go up the middle. He's a big guy. He's going up the middle. He's breaking tackles. He's breaking off big runs. That's what he did last year. He did have 114 yards against Ball State last year, so obviously they watched some film and figured out how to stop him, and that was loading the box. So Ball State, credit them, they did a great job stopping him. But yeah, Scott needs – the offensive line is probably going to get it done against Eastern Illinois. It should be a little game to get some confidence boost for the whole offensive line and probably Stephen Scott himself as they're going into Ohio State.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You guys mentioned the inexperienced and young offensive line, but 2 of the players, Hunter Littlejohn and Coy Cronk, are on watch lists themselves for being the top of that position.
Yeah, but the offensive line is all about cohesion. You need to have all 5 of those guys be working together to be successful. Coy Cronk's great. Hunter Littlejohn's very good as well. But if you don't have all 5 working as a unit, it all collapses. And that's what we saw a lot in the run game last week.
So we take a step back, still looking at this offense, though. New offensive coordinator, Kalen DeBoer, comes in, promised a new scheme. What did you see? Did we get this new scheme? Is it a good scheme for Indiana, or is it something that needs work?
Oh, I loved it. I mean, you talked about everything from the short passing game to set up the deep ball early on to not running a quarterback draw on 3rd and 8. Actually throwing the ball past the first down marker on a 3rd down. Now, it was very fun to see just Kalen DeBoer had a good sense of what Ball State was doing that was stacking the run, and he did a good job taking advantage of it. That's not going to work against more talented teams, which is why they need to establish the run. But Kalen DeBoer had a really great game plan. It was really fun to execute, and just fun to see play calling that worked, and having guys open all over the field for Penix to hit. That's something we haven't seen for a few years.
We were so used to watching this train wreck that we had to watch last year. That was called the IU football offensive playbook. So this was a glorious picture to see from the first drive. The ability to throw out to guys like Stevie Scott on a little bubble route. The ability to throw deep to Westbrook for a 75-yard touchdown. That's what DeBoer wanted to do. And what I love about the most about it is he's not doing it. He's not implementing his plays for guys that don't fit his scheme. He's implementing plays that fit the players that IU has right now on their offensive game plan. And he's running plays for Nick Westbrook. He's running plays for Stevie Scott. He's running plays that Michael Penix can throw the ball to. He is running it based on his personnel, which is what you want because that can give you long-term success, and especially for recruiting. Let's go there. When you're recruiting one of the best running backs in the state and he's seeing how you're literally making plays for a running back that's trying to become one of the best in the Big Ten, that's going to be way more appealing to that kid trying to commit to a school where he can really fit into a system. So I think Kalen DeBoer's ability to really make a system work for the players that are on his roster is so important, and I think that's exactly what you saw week one.
And you bring up the Westbrook touchdown. I mean, when Penix threw that ball to Westbrook, there was a moment where I'm sitting there thinking like, wow, I forgot what this looked like. This is great. We're going to see this a lot. This is awesome. But yeah, it was a lot of fun for sure.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And even when he threw the deep ball to Westbrook when he dropped the pass. But like we said, it's going to happen. And going back to your recruiting thing, you talk about running backs, if you're a wide receiver and you're looking at Indiana in the past and you're looking how they got 3rd and long and they're just, Peyton Ramsey's throwing a little dump down pass. If you're a wide receiver, that's not appealing to you. You don't want to get a 3-yard pass and then try to make it all on your own. You're going to want to run some routes downfield, catch a body if you have to. So, yeah, this Kalen DeBoer, I love the way the offense was running on Saturday. It looked really great. He really let Penix shine in that offense, the ability to make passes and drawing up design quarterback runs up the middle to get a lot of yards. He just did a great job of implementing Michael Penix into his scheme, and Penix looked really great in it.
Yeah, great stuff so far, guys. Now, as you mentioned, though, this is just game one. So we're going to take a little bit of a break, but coming up after the break, we'll get more into IU season down the road, what Hoosier fans can expect ahead. So stick with us. Welcome back to the toss-up. Now, we've already discussed some of the basics, but there were plenty of key players in last week's games who could possibly continue to contribute down the stretch. So let's kick it over to Matt Cohen at the Media Wall, who has more on some guys to keep an eye on. Matt?
In his first start as the IU quarterback, Michael Penix was bound to be the story. He was the guy all the media in Indianapolis swarmed around, pressing up against the wall to hear from. But IU's kicker Logan Justice didn't have that same attention in the press room. Sure, special teams aren't sexy. It's a game that's based on touchdowns, not field goals. But Justice was part of a special teams group that was nearly flawless Saturday against Ball State. In the modern college game, it's hard to find a great college kicker. There aren't even many elite kickers in the NFL. But IU has one of those rare elite legs. On Saturday, Justice set his career-long field goal not once, not twice, but 3 times. Justice made kicks from 48, then 49, then 50 yards in a 4-for-4 performance against Ball State. A performance that led to him being named the Big Ten Special Teams Player of the Week. All three career-long kicks sailed easily through the uprights as Justice aimed for seats long beyond the goalposts. It's hard enough to find a great college kicker, but it's harder still to find a great kicker and punter on the same team. IU has that too. Hayden Whitehead set his career long with a 63-yard punt. He averaged 51.7 yards per punt, and 2 of his 3 punts were down inside the 10-yard line. He was given a weekly award too, this one from the Ray Guy Award for his performance. Like Justice is reliable to make field goals from long range, Whitehead is reliable to give IU an edge in the field position battle. And then there's true freshman David Ellis. Ellis was listed as a backup kick returner, but given an opportunity, he proved to be IU's most dynamic option Saturday. Ellis returned 4 kicks for 104 yards, including a long of 33. He had a second return of over 30 yards taken away due to penalties. Ellis has now taken over the top spot on the depth chart as the team's kick returner. Oh, and he threw a pass to Peyton Hendershot to complete a 2-point conversion. It was a play that had never been run to Hendershot in practice. With this special teams group, Tom Allen certainly has something special. Back to you, Drill.
Thanks, Matt. So now, guys, we're going to come back to you. I just got to start off with the big question. A lot of people are asking about this team's peak. But, Griffin, I'm going to start with you because I know this is near and dear to your heart. Trending on social media, hashtag 9WINdiana. 9 wins for this Indiana team. Is it real?
No.
I can't believe we're even talking. I mean, come on.
No.
Drew, I thought this
Here's
was a
the thing.
professional show.
I got to ask.
If you are at
you
home
don't.
right now and you're tweeting hashtag 9WinIndiana, you need to delete Twitter. You're using it wrong. That's not okay. Listen, you are playing in the Big Ten East. This is the toughest division in football. I don't care about the SEC. You have Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan State. Over the past 5 years, every single one of those teams has been in the conversation for the college football playoff. Not like, maybe. They've been there, and they've been close to getting there. So don't say 9-win Indiana when you have to play all 4 of those teams in your schedule any given year. Something else I want to add here. You've struggled to win 6 over the past few years.
The past decades.
You're
That's Indiana football.
You're talking about an extra 3 on top of that already pretty hard 6. Now, I'm an optimist, so I'm not going with 9 because I'm also a realist, but I am going to go with a possibility of 7. And it's not really in IU football hands because IU football is one of those teams that's always going to play to the level of their competition. Are they going to beat an Ohio State? Probably not. But if Penn State, Maryland, Michigan State, even I put in that category, all 3 are set to have a big question mark year where they could be good, but they could also be terrible. If all 3 of them, and right now I'm kind of on the borderline of all 3, are going to have somewhat subpar years, Indiana has a chance to capitalize on those. And that could get you not just your 6 wins, that could also get you to 7, maybe even flirting with it, maybe 8. But let's not go crazy on the 9-win Indiana. Let's get to 6 first, then we'll talk 9.
I'm going to ask you guys a quick question. Since 2013, Indiana is 29-21 against all schools not named Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State, and Penn State. They've played those 4 schools 24 times in that span. How many wins do they have in that time frame?
I'm going to wait on your answer. I don't even want to try on that.
You don't want to. No one wants to take a guess.
Stephen,
They're-
Griffin?
They're 2-22 in those 24 games.
2 wins.
So to expect to win one of those games this year is a huge stretch, and to assume that Indiana would be able to win one of those and beat all the teams they're supposed to beat, which would also mean they'd probably have to upset Northwestern and Purdue, which they're probably both going to be underdogs in. That's too much. I mean, Northwestern is a lot winnable than it was a week ago, especially now since their starting quarterback, TJ Green, is out for the rest of the season with foot surgery. But it's a stretch just to get to 6. Let's pump the brakes a little bit, guys.
And I just want to add this. We are all for the enthusiasm and the excitement of IU fans. But it's also very important that you understand what bar you are setting at, 9 wins. And it's very important that you are understanding how much 9 wins is for a program that has not been able to get 9 wins in a very, 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 very long time.
So then, Stephen, what's the peak of this team? What do you think is the reasonable cap?
Reasonable cap for me, I mean, I'm looking at 6, but like Griffin was saying, maybe 7, because there's some teams in the Big Ten who are in that question mark state. Like Nebraska only had 4 wins last year. Now they're looking to have a bigger season this year, obviously, but they only had 4 wins. So Indiana can steal a game at Nebraska.
Do we really think that Indiana football, though, is going to go in and win at Nebraska? Is that a thing that happens?
It's a possibility.
Right, it's a possibility. So
I mean, it's also a possibility that I'm going to go to the moon tomorrow.
It's a less likely possibility.
Yeah, less likely possibility. But
it's a possibility.
All right, but
there's a chance.
Right, but what I'm saying is Indiana is, we're talking about the peak, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
in all likelihood, they could go into Nebraska and get a win. It could happen, right? So that's a win right there. They could also get one from Northwestern. And if they win the games they're supposed to, that they're favored in, then that should get them to about 5. Then they just need to steal 1 or 2 games. And they always play Michigan close at home in the past couple. They always have a close game with Michigan. Usually gets away late, but they always play them close. If they can just cross the finish line instead of getting right there and then just hitting the brakes. But it could, anything can happen. But I'd say the peak, I would say, is 7. I'm going 7. That's the most I would go.
All right, now I'm going to have to move on from this question because we can't be sitting here arguing this all day. But this one has a little bit of a similar twist. From a team standpoint, what is it going to take? What does IU need to do to actually get to a bowl game this year? Jack?
They need to do 2 things. They need to win the games they're supposed to win, so the 3 non-conference games and Rutgers and Maryland. So they got to win those 5. And then they got to beat someone that they're not supposed to beat. To me, the best chances for that is either Northwestern at home or Purdue on the road. Because they're not beating the Big 4. It's not a thing that Indiana does. You may say Michigan State's down. I still think they're ahead of where Indiana is, even though they are down and their offense is terrible. I don't think Indiana has what it takes to go to a Michigan State or Nebraska and win. I just don't. So I think Northwestern and Purdue, you got to win one of those 2, and then you can get to 6.
I think the big thing is a few things. One, the defense has to get better. And I know it most likely will because Tom Allen's a fantastic coach when it comes to developing defenses over the course of a season. And one Big Ten coach said anonymously in an article this summer that Tom Allen is an absolute magician at turning subpar defenses into one of the best defenses in the Big Ten. So that will most likely get there. The other thing you need to do, I'm going to agree with Jack on winning the games you need to do, but you also need to find a way to somehow compete every single night. I'm not talking like flirt with a third quarter lead. I'm saying like it needs to go down to the final 2 minutes of the fourth quarter against Michigan. It needs to be able to go into overtimes against Ohio State and Penn State.
They took Michigan to double overtime just 2 years ago.
Yeah. But what I'm saying
And
is
they
you
still didn't
need
make a bowl
more of
game.
that. Because what that does is that creates like a stirring, we could have had that mentality. So I'm not saying you're going to beat Ohio State, but that we could have had it mentality could translate into Northwestern. It could translate into Purdue. It could translate into Michigan, Penn State, whatever you need it to translate into. So you need to be able to build up that confidence. And this is a young team that does not have that much of it. Once you build up that confidence, you play against some of the best teams in the nation, you compete and possibly beat some of those best teams in the nation, then this team could be bowling very easily.
If Indiana doesn't have that feeling, though, of we're that close, we're going to get over the hump, when are they going to get it? I mean, like, even last year, talk about young team. Most of the guys were around last year and they almost beat Penn State. If they don't have that already, when are they going to get that?
Steven?
Yeah. Well, I think to get to a bowl game, I agree. They have to win the games they're supposed to. The games they're supposed to would get them to 5, like you said. And I think Purdue is a likely win for them, especially with the way they played against Ball State. If they can fix the little mistakes that they made, then they should be well-rounded enough to go to West Lafayette and beat Purdue. Now, also, like Griffin was saying, they need, like he said, they play down to their competition. They need to play Indiana football. They can't play down to whoever they're playing. So if they're playing UConn, they can't play UConn football. They have to play
Please no.
their
Please
football.
do not
Exactly.
do that.
Yeah.
Please.
Right.
They
so
went 1-11 last year. Do not play UConn football.
They barely beat Wagner last week.
Right, so they need to play the football that they know that they can play. They also, if they fix the running game, which I expect them to, then they're going to be a two-dimensional offense. They can run the ball with Scott, and then once they start stopping Scott, then Penix can air it out, and vice versa. So if they can, get the offense going, then I think they will be in contention with the bigger schools, and I think that they'll be able to steal one of them.
All right, now time to speed this up. 10-second answers from you. I'm going to start with you, Steven. By the end of the season, who will we be saying was the IU Player of the Year? 10 seconds.
Player of the Year, I just got to go with Michael Penix. He looked really good against Ball State. Even though he threw those 2 interceptions, he bounced back really well, 326 passing yards. And I think he's recovered well from his ACL. I think the ceiling, he hasn't even grazed it yet.
Awesome. Griffin?
Nick Westbrook. I think he's one of the best receivers, and not just on this team. He's going to be one of the best receivers in the country this year. With the way Penix can throw the football, with the way this IU offense can be built around him, Nick Westbrook very well could be one of the first receivers drafted come this May.
This is what I get for going third, because preseason I would have gone C.V. Scott, but I'm worried about the offensive line right now. I'm also going to go with Westbrook.
Awesome. So now we're going to flip it back around. Most surprising IU player by the end of the year. This could be good or bad. Jack?
Oh, David Ellis. I mean, come on. The man throws a touchdown pass. He had 104 kickoff return yards against Ball State. Last year, Indiana's leader, Mike Majette, had 109 all season. He's going to be a factor in the special teams game.
I hate to say it because a lot of people pick him as player of the year. I'm going Mike Penix, okay, because I think he's going to continue to surprise fans with his ability to throw and run the football all season long. He's going to have a fantastic year.
Right. I was going to go Ellis, but I didn't want to copy. So I'm going to say Whop Phillier. I think he's going to have a good season at wide receiver, especially with Westbrook being as dynamic as he is. If they start doubling him, that's going to open up something with Phillier. I think his speed and his hands, I think he could have a good
in the
year.
open field.
Exactly.
All right, now last question, another 10-second one. We already talked about the team's record, so I'm going to switch it up. Biggest win of the year for Indiana. Steven?
Biggest win of the year for Indiana is going to be on the road at Nebraska.
Wow.
Griffin?
All right.
I'm going to go home Northwestern. I think that's a huge opportunity, bringing in the former Big Ten championship, or not championship, but contender.
Yes.
Bringing them into Memorial Stadium, letting them play here in a tough environment. That's going to be a lot of fun to watch, and it's going to be a huge win for Indiana.
This is a bit from the preseason. I had the Hoosiers at 5-7, but after watching Northwestern last week and now their quarterback TJ Green out, I'm not sold on them. So I think Indiana makes a statement against Northwestern, and that's the one that gets them over the hump and back to a bowl game.
Awesome. Great talking with you guys. Thank you all for being here, and that does it for the show this week. So be sure to continue the discussion on our Twitter page at IUSTV Sports and on Facebook at IUSTV Sports. You can always give any suggestions for the show and ask any questions you might have. So toss it up, find out if we'll catch it. We'll see you next time.